everyone, and welcome to a special episode of A Stitch in Time. I'm Carol, also known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry. Today is Wednesday, January 6th, 2021. Now that 2020 has come to a close, it's time for me to look back on what I accomplished during the fourth and final quarter of the 20 in 20 challenge. And it's also a chance to look ahead to the new year and talk a little bit about my crafting goals for 2021. For those of you who don't know, the 20 in 20 challenge was a year-long kind of a choose your own adventure knit along hosted by Lisa of Fibernymph Dyeworks. The idea was to make a list of 20 things you wanted to accomplish during the year. You could choose 20 things in one category, for instance, 20 patterns that you wanted to knit, or 20 specific skeins of yarn, or 20 works in progress you wanted to finish. Or you could do a combination of those things or none at all. It really was up to you to form your own goals for the year. And so when I began the year, my list was comprised of a combination of several works in progress I wanted to finish, several specific skeins of yarn I wanted to knit up, and then some more vague plans. For instance, my niece was expecting a baby shortly, and I knew I wanted to knit a baby gift for her. I also knew I wanted to participate in Fibernymph Dyeworks monthly makes program this year, and so I had a very general 6 skeins of Fibernymph Dyeworks yarn to be determined as part of my list. We were allowed to edit our lists after each quarter, and so through the course of the year I took away a few items, but I added a lot more. So by the time the fourth quarter began, I had 45 items on my list. Now, I did not finish all of 45 items, but I am pleased with what I did accomplish this year, and I'll talk a little bit about my overall achievements a little bit later. First, I'm going to concentrate on this fourth quarter. So a couple of housekeeping notes first. Like my prior quarterly review episodes, I am not going to do show notes, but I will write pertinent details down here at the bottom of this screen. And also, if you go to my Ravelry projects page, at the very top is a tab called 20 in 20. So if you click on that, you will have all of my 2020 projects right in front of you. So in case you're looking for any additional information on them. And if you still don't find what you're looking for, by all means, drop me a line. I'm happy to answer any questions. The best way to reach me is by leaving a comment on YouTube, by leaving a comment in the episode thread in Ravelry, in the Ravelry group, and also by leaving me a private message on Ravelry. I do not check the blog comments or the email associated with YouTube very often. So those messages tend to kind of get lost in time. So as I set about gathering projects to talk about for the fourth quarter, I realized that the last few months have been very heavy on gift knitting, and most of those projects have been given away. So in that case, I will include a photo of the finished project. At the beginning of the fourth quarter, I added 6 new items to my list, and I managed to finish 5 of them, plus 2 other items that had previously been on my list. So I'll talk about those 2 items first and then talk about the others. So the first of those old projects were the Father's Day socks number 3, and apparently my husband is wearing them today because they are not in his drawer and they are not in the laundry. So on Father's Day, I gave my husband 3 skeins of Cascade Heritage Wave sock yarn and promised to knit them up by the end of the year. I had previously knit him a pair of socks out of this yarn and they were his favorites. They fit really well. The yarn was nice and soft, and he found that of all his socks, they kept his feet the warmest. So this particular pair was knit from the colorway Plume. I think it's 501, but I'll put that at the bottom of the screen. They were just a basic 72 stitch top down sock, 2x2 rib, traditional heel flap and gusset, and rounded toe. So I don't think there's a whole lot more I can say about those. The second of those long-term or somewhat long-term items on my list was a baby sweater for the aforementioned great niece that was born last January. So she's coming up on a year old. And I'm ashamed to say it took me almost all year to get a gift knit for her, even though I bought the yarn and pattern for it way back in the spring. So I ended up knitting the Wee Wildflower by Alana Dakos. It was a miniature version of her, is it just a wildflower cardigan, I think it was, that she had previously published in Coastal Knits. I had originally planned to knit the 6 months size, thinking it would be a good sweater to wear in spring, summer, and fall. But because I'd waited so long, I ended up knitting the 18-month size. And thankfully I had plenty of yarn. The yarn I used for it was Baby Drops Merino in beautiful buttery yellow colorway. Again, I'll put the number down below. So the 6 items I added at the beginning of the 4th quarter, of those 3 were socks, 1 was a sweater, 1 was a shawl, and 1 was a baby gift that at that time again was sort of yet to be determined. My niece had another niece had a little boy in October. So I had previously knit for his mom by her request a sock monkey hat. And when his older brother was born a couple of years ago, I knit him a sock monkey hat to match his mom's. So that got me to thinking about whether or not there was such a thing as a sock monkey sweater pattern out there. And sure enough, I was able to locate one. And since it came in both baby and child's sizes, I ended up knitting one for the new baby, along with a sock monkey hat of his own, and also one for his older brother. They turned out great. I ended up using Broco Vintage, I think it's just Broco Vintage, not, don't think there's anything else to add to that. I was going to say DK, but I'm pretty sure it was just the original Broco Vintage yarn, and which I had used before for a sweater for my grandson. Washes up really nice, it's soft to wear, but it does still have some wool in it, so it's nice and warm, and just has that bounce that that wool tends to have. So she was absolutely thrilled. Immediately I received some photos of the 2 boys wearing their sweaters, and then I was really tickled to find out that they both also wore them for some family photos that they had done. So because she's very private, doesn't have her kids on social media at all, I can't show you those photos, but I will pop in a picture of this. Well, I'll pop in pictures of both sweaters, because even though the only one I actually included in the 2020 challenge was for the new baby, I kind of knit them at the same time. They kind of go together. I also was really pleased to finally get around to knitting the Summer Tide Shawl by Helen Stewart. It's a shawl that I had my eye on for a long time, and I was kind of itching to knit a shawl. Advent wasn't here yet. I went through my stash and I chose these yarns that I had bought at Knit City last year. colors are blowing out a little bit. This is a little bit darker than what it appears here. These yarns were from Earl Grey Fiber Company. I think that's what it is. I know it's Earl Grey. This was the Desert Bloom colorway, and this was the Patina colorway. So this is just a very simple, fairly small crescent-shaped shawl. I wear it like a scarf, like I do most of the shawls of this size and shape. That's really, really pretty. Oops. There you go. Yeah, so I was happy to finally get that knit. It's been on my sort of to-do list or my wish list for a while. I also finished up 3 pairs of socks for gifts. So I don't have, well, actually I do have 1 pair to show you. So I guess I actually have 4 pairs of socks to show you, 3 that were gifts. So the first of those was the Mermaid's tail socks that I knit for our future daughter-in-law. I gave them to her at Christmas time, and they were knit from Loco yarn, which was also called Mermaid tail. So both the pattern and the yarn have the same name. She is crazy about mermaids and even has a mermaid tail of her own that she can swim in. So I knew that they were perfect for her. I had to guess a little bit at her size. So I had my son go through her shoes, give me an idea of what kind of sizes are in her collection. And from that, I surmised that her foot was just a little bit smaller than mine. So luckily, I guessed right, and they fit her perfectly, she said. So really pleased with that. That's the first pair of socks I've knit for her. But they were received enthusiastically, so I suspect they won't be the last. I knit a pair of socks for my younger sister's birthday, which served double duty as part of my requirements for the Fibernymph Dyeworks monthly makes program, as do the next 2 socks. So in this case, I used the Swoosh 2.0 base in the So Very Trivial colorway. My younger sister, I always tease her that she has a trivial mind because she hangs on to little bits and pieces of information that most of us don't. She and I can read the same book and she will pull things out of that book, little facts and figures that just go by me. So the stripes in this yarn colorway are based on the colors from the game pieces from the game Trivial Pursuit. It seemed rather a fitting pair of socks for her and she was really happy with them. Pair of gift socks I actually do still have because I knit them for my husband are these. This is the Mountain Tweed base of Fibernymph Dyeworks in the Storm Warning colorway. And I wasn't sure if I was going to get them done in time for Christmas or not, but it was either the 23rd or the 24th that I Kitchenered the toe and was able to wrap them up and put them under the tree. So once again, a basic 72 stitch top down sock, just the same as most of the other ones I end up knitting for him. I have knit him some pattern socks over the years, but I usually just do a pretty basic one. So he liked them, that's good, and that was that. Not much more to say. My final pair of final pair of socks and my final project for the Fibernymph Dyeworks monthly makes program were my Scrappy Advent socks. So I knit the Adventurous wrap, only I modified it to a cowl from the majority of my 2020 Holiday Pops collection mini-skeins. like an advent collection. And then I used leftovers to knit the socks. So all of these colors, starting here, that was day 1 up to day 24. All of these stripes are done in the minis, and then I used some leftover yarn from my Cirrus socks that I had knit prior to previously in the year in the denim colorway in order to do the heel. So these I knit from the toe up and did a short row yarn over short row heel. 64 stitches, 2x2 rib for a cuff. So sort of my go-to for myself. So with these socks, I had enough yardage to meet my fulfillments for the 4th quarter of the year and get my discount, and I believe because I fulfilled the requirements for the last 2 quarters of the year, that I get a free skein of yarn. So that's kind of cool. The last project that I had added to my list in, I guess it's October, was my SwallowTail sweater. And even though I did work on it, I didn't manage to finish it before the end of the year. But I have completed the body. In fact, I just cast the ribbing off 2 nights ago. So it's ready for sleeves. Whoops, there you go. And I knit this from 4 different colors of Fidley Dyeworks yarn. And I just love how it turned out. Fits really well, and I just love the color work. So that's the front, and then that's the back. So that is the first of the projects that I did not finish in 2020, but there were others. Let's first focus on what I did accomplish, and then I'll go back and let you know what's still on the list. So I, in all, finished 33 projects, and that's not all of them for the year, because there were some projects that I did finish this year that never got added to the 20 and 20 list because they were kind of knit in between the ends of quarters. And so I feel really good about that. In all, I finished 4 sweaters. I knit up partial, like 8 different skeins of yarn for the monthly makes program. You needed to knit a minimum of 300 grams per quarter. And so I found out it would take me 4 partial skeins to get there. Because my feet aren't very big, I wouldn't use 100 grams of skein or 100 grams of yarn for a pair of socks for myself or even for my husband. So I ended up needing 8 skeins of yarn or 8 different projects to reach my goals for the 3rd and 4th quarter. I finished up a couple of pairs for the 2nd Handmade Sock Society collection by Helen Stewart, and then I managed to finish 5 out of 6 patterns for the 3rd collection. I had hoped to get all 6 done, but that didn't happen. I participated in 2 mystery knit-alongs that I hadn't planned to do at the beginning of the year. I finished up 3 really long-term hibernating projects. That just was so satisfying. And also, as I mentioned, knit up a couple of baby gifts. So what did I not accomplish that had been on my list? I had 3 skeins of yarn that are special skeins because they were gifts. 2 from knitter friends, 1 from my daughters. So I did not knit up 3 skeins of yarn, though you can see these 2 have been balled up because I did attempt some projects with them this year. Just haven't found the right ones yet. So I'm still going to kind of keep these set aside and try and find the perfect project for them this year. As I mentioned, I only knit 5 out of the 6 patterns for the most recent Handmade Sock Society. So I still have to knit up these Vapour socks. So that is going to be my next pair of socks that I cast on this year. I do have a pair of plain stockinette ones on the needles now, but this will be my next pair of patterned socks. I still haven't chosen the yarn for those. And then I have this little bin here full of works in progress from my list. So I'll talk about those really briefly also. So I started out all gung-ho and knit the first of my Songbird mitts by Erica Huser. I knit this one up pretty quickly, pretty early last year, and I've never cast on the second. And so, yeah, that I am hoping to do this year, very soon, in fact. So that is going, besides the Swallowtail sweater, this is going, actually all of these, except maybe one of these projects, are going on my to-do list for 2021. So there's the Swallowtail sweater, the Vapour socks, the Songbird mitts. Another thing I'd really like to finish up this year is the Belgrade hat. It looks like that. It's not the greatest picture because it is, of course, in black and white. It is a pattern from Blacker Yarns, designed by Rita Taylor, and I am knitting it in the suggested yarn, which is Blacker Samite, which is a wool silk blend. This is the Sunless Hours colorway, so beautiful gray, like my hair. And I have done the center garter triangle, and I've also done the next stretch of pattern. It's kind of a old shale type pattern. And what still needs to be done is an edging put along. Wherever you see that needle, there's an edging that runs along. It is a triangular shawl. So I would say I'm about halfway done. I think on this style of shawl, the edging tends to be about half of the yarn. So, you know, it shouldn't take me that long. It's just something I never got back to after I completed the second step. I think it's partly because the way it's explained, you have to break the yarn on this end and start on the other end. And in my mind, I keep thinking there must be a way that I can do this without having to break the yarn. Not that it's a big deal to wind in a couple of ends, but it's just something that I don't do unless I absolutely have to. So I still need to take a good look at the pattern and see if there's a way around that. Another shawl that I would really love to finish up because it's been on the needles way too long is a pattern from this book called Juju's Loops. Back in, I think it was 2015, I met up with a Ravelry friend in London, and while my husband, she so kindly showed us around some different spots in London that day. And then while my husband sat in a pub down the street, we walked up to Loop London and did some shopping. So while I was there, I bought yarn for this prairie shawl. And unfortunately, I cast it on quite soon after, but I got stalled on it. It is knit from, I picked out this yarn, beautiful red. It's actually getting really blown out in this light. It's almost, not quite a brick red, but it's definitely not bright red like it's showing up. It is Dyeworks yarn in the red rose, whoops, red rose losing its fire colorway. So you can see it's a wool and silk blend. It is beautiful. It's soft and it knits up really nicely. So again, one of those patterns I'm really, you know, kind of kicking myself for not, or one of those projects I'm kicking myself for not having finished yet. So that's what I have done so far. I think part of the issue is that you start out with lots of stitches. It's knit from the bottom up. I also think part of it is that it has these noops in it. So it's quite time consuming. You have to pay a lot of attention. So I just need to find the right time to sit down and devote some time to it and finish it up, because it will be a beautiful souvenir of our time together when I finally get it done. Another shawl that I am not so sure is going to get done in 2021. I think it dates back to 2010, something like that, and it is the Berry-Bluetiful Summer Stole by Joan Schroeder. It is knit from Helen's Lace by Lorna's Laces, which is a wool and silk blend, and it was part of a shawl yarn club that I was in from Make One Yarn Studio in Calgary, Alberta. And I really don't have that far to go on the first half. I have a few more repeats, and once I finish the first half, then I have to knit one just like it and then graft the stitches together in the center. This was one of the numerous projects that I had hibernating for a long time, and I can't remember exactly when it was. I think it was late last spring. I went through all of those projects and decided whether I was going to finish or frog them. And if you're interested, I did do a special episode with that, and I'll put the thing up on the screen. Actually, I think it comes up on that side. I never remember. Someone told me how to remember, but I can't remember what she said. If you're watching, you'll be laughing at me now. Anyway, I know why this isn't done. It's because there are charts for every little bit. There's a border chart, a next chart, a chart for this one, a chart for the middle, for the right center, a chart for the left center, chart for here, chart for here, chart for here. So you literally have to go from chart to chart to chart to chart as you go across. There's no rhythm to it. You do get a rest row on the row back. At least I'm pretty sure you do on most of it, if not all of it. There might even be some rows where you have to do patterning on both sides. So it's something you really need to be in the mood to work on, and something you need some definite quiet time where you can devote to it. So I know why it's not done. I almost frogged it last year, and then looked at all the work I had put into it and decided I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So I'm just gonna put it away again and know that it's waiting there for me whenever I'm ready to give it some more attention. It seems a shame. It's going to be gorgeous when it's done. It's just, yeah, other things just seem to take priority. Another shawl, it's our theme here, that needs some attention is this shawl that I started designing last year out of the Road to Tofino Party of 5 set from Sweet Georgia Yarns. And Tofino, or that road to Tofino, my husband and I have driven several times and stayed out on the west coast of Vancouver Island a few times. And so when I saw that Party of Five come up, I bought it immediately, and I wanted to knit a shawl that was sort of a had a theme of that road. So I chose a lace pattern that had this windy look to it that reminded me of the windy road, and then also the waves on the beach. The end does not come out quite how I want it to, and I have an idea how I want to finish it, but it involves taking it all back out again and starting over. And so it has been sitting in my basket of unfinished projects for months now, but that is my goal, to finish that up, or redo it, I guess, write out the pattern and publish that this year. I'm going to carry that forward. I had also hoped to design and publish another sock pattern this year, and that didn't happen. Try not to beat myself up too much about that. It was an unusual year after all, but kind of disappointed that I didn't accomplish either my goal to design a sock or design a shawl and get them out there. See, yeah, the final thing is that I did cast on the, there's a terrible picture of it. I did cast on Hinterland by Jennifer Steingass using some yarn from Sweet Fiber. And I'll pull up this, well, actually I'll put the picture up on the screen. I got as far as knitting the yoke, but it was too big when I finished. And so I have frogged it all, and I need to reknit it with a smaller needle and or go down a size. So I do have my yarn all caked back up and ready to go when I'm ready. So I'm hoping to do that sweater this year, because I love how the yoke looks in the colors that I chose. Again, just a matter of finding time to do it. So other than the Berry-Bluetiful stole, all of these projects I just talked about are part of my goal for 2021. I have one other knitting goal, or a couple of other knitting goals, I should say. Just going to flip to my page in my show notes here. One of them is to finish up another really long-term project. I have had my Longest Night shawl by Lori Law on the needle since the winter solstice of 2017. It is knit from this Willy Wonka merino silk lace weight, and it's huge. When you're finished, you have 693 stitches on the needle. I am on my last repeat of the second chart, and that's in the neighborhood of 350 or 360 stitches that I'm at now. I think when I finish chart 2, I'll have 377 stitches on the needle. So I know I talked about this in my last regular episode and said I wanted to finish to the end of chart 2, and then I was probably going to put it away. But what I've decided to do is make a point of working on this first thing in the morning for approximately an hour a day. In that time right now, I can get kind of 2 rows done, pattern row and then the purl back row. and you know, I expect for a little while that's what I'll be able to accomplish until it grows to such a size that I'll only be able to get one row done a day. But I figure if I just keep going like that through the year, eventually it will get finished. And I do enjoy working on it. And if I just sort of set myself those small bites of knitting time, and that small goal, if I do that most days, I should be able to finish that this year. So that is my hope. It's going to be absolutely gorgeous when it's done. And it just seems a shame that it's been only basically knit on for a little bit every year around the winter solstice time, and then put back in its bag and put away for another year. So that's one of my goals for this year, is to finish up this shawl also. So yeah, how many shawls is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 sort of that have been on the needles for a while, and then I'm also working on a sixth shawl right now, which is the Albuquerque Sunset, but I only started that back in November, and I have been working on it quite a bit this past week, so I won't worry about showing that to you right now. I will show it in my next regular episode, and I did show it on my last regular episode. So that is also on my to-do list this year for knitting. One of the things I'm most excited about is finally breaking into this box of yarn from Knit Picks. Whoops. Just look at it. I'm just so excited by this box of yarn. I just keep it like that so I can just look at it. I will be knitting the Dogwood Blossom sweater once I finish my Swallowtail. That is my goal, is to get this colorwork sweater done before I turn around and cast on another. So that will be coming up this year, hopefully maybe even by the end of this month. It shouldn't take me too long to knit up the sleeves on here. So she says, you know what Sleeve Island looks like, right? The black hole of sleeves. And then another thing, my final goal for knitting this year is to finally make something by Jennifer Wood. She's a designer I've admired for a long time, but I've yet to knit one of her patterns. I've had her book, Refined Knits, for several years. There are a couple of possibilities in here. One is this diamond pullover. Features this, let's see if I get it out of the light here. There we go. It features that same motif back and front. There's also a really cute cardigan. Called Camellia Pinecone Cardigan. There's also lots of other really nice patterns in this book. This is Corinne Oval Pullover. Plus she has tons of other patterns on Ravelry. So one of my goals this year is to finally knit a Jennifer Wood sweater. And I think that takes care of all my knitting goals. As far as other crafts go, you can see right there. It's hard to know where to go. There, I have a new loom. I got a new loom for Christmas. So far I've knit up a sample on it, or woven up a sample, and I've also woven a scarf, which I will show you later this week on my next regular episode. And I'm really excited about playing on it. I have received several different sizes of the petals, so I can use different weights of yarn in it. And I have several weaving books that I've downloaded on my Kindle that have ideas for specific projects or just for specific weaving stitches. That's what you call them, weaving patterns, I guess is a better word for it. So I am really excited to play with that this year. I would also like to do more cross stitch. I am pleased that last year I did do some work on two projects in particular. One that was a lingering project, my autumn bell pull, and the other I actually started, the Oh Christmas Tree. And then I since then even received a pair of kind of magnifying glasses type gadget that I can either put on over my own glasses or wear when I use my contact lenses, and that really helps to magnify both the chart and the stitches. So I am hoping to carve out more time this year for cross stitch because I've missed it. I used to do it a ton. You can see actually this is a cross stitch picture, that's a cross stitch picture. I have quite a few hanging all over my house, and something I used to do the most of as far as crafting went, and I'd like to get back to it. I also do anticipate doing some more sewing, mostly quilting this year. My machine, I had jammed it before Christmas and had sent it out for repair, so I have it back after its tune-up. And so I am looking forward to doing some more sewing and quilting this year too. So there you have it. Those are my crafting plans for 2021. What are yours? And are you interested in crafting along with others? If so, be sure to come by the Ravelry group and take part in our latest craft along, Making Time for Me. This idea for the latest CAL was born out of my anticipation that after all the holidays were done and all the gift knitting was finished, that I would have time to indulge in some, quote, selfish crafting. Now, honestly, I don't think there really is such a thing. I always compare it to golfing. I highly doubt that there's any golfer out there who, while engaging in their hobby, has a sense that they must somehow benefit someone else from it. But somehow we makers sometimes experience a little bit of guilt when we are making things for ourselves and not sharing our talents with others. I also happen to think that taking time to engage in the crafts that we love is very good for our mental health, whether it be making something for ourselves or for someone else. And so I had asked for suggestions for names for this CAL and got a lot of really good ones. Thank you for that, by the way. And a theme that seemed to run through a lot of them was the validation of taking time to make things for ourselves. And so I kind of took some ideas, some words out of the various suggestions and came up with the title Making Time for Me. And I think of it in two ways. One is that we have time to make things, making time, but there were also taking time or carving out some time for ourselves to engage in the crafts that we love. So making time for me. And whether, as I say, those items are for ourselves or for someone else, they bring us joy and peace and a sense of calm. And are there to feed our creativity. So as always, this craft along is very relaxed, very inclusive. It's less about the items we're making and more about the sense of community that we share when we are talking about what we're making and showing pictures. And therefore, the prizes are not based on whether you finish something, it's simply on the chatter. So at the end of February, as I did in the latest gift along, craft along, I will draw winners from the chatter thread. And rules are simple. You can only win one prize. So whether you are knitting, sewing, quilting, weaving, whatever it is, whatever craft you're engaging in, and whoever the finished item might be for, come on by the Ravelry group and join in the conversation. All right, so I think that wraps it up for this special episode. I am planning to record a regular episode later this week, possibly as soon as tomorrow, so keep your eye out for that. In the meantime, thank you for watching this episode, and take care and happy crafting until I see you again. Bye.